We've got bringing NFTs to Hollywood, leveraging IP communities. We've got Schaiman. Last time I saw you was NFT LA. What's up, homie?
How we do?
Good, come on in. We got MK and Eliot. Come on down. You guys can take your stage. You guys got about 25 minutes. Feel free to ask any of the audience any questions. They have some awesome questions. And everybody, thank you for being here. You had a choice, and you made the right choice. Thank you. See ya.
Well, all right. Good morning, NFT.NYC. I'll give you guys a brief background for me. My name's Schaiman. I'm better known as Schaiman 4646. I lead the Non-Fungible Heroes project. We're a generative project of heroes, villains, and gods. We minted in September of 2021. The goal for our project is to use community-led creative to bring it out into mainstream media. So we have our first comic, which is gorgeous, that's been released. We have signed with William Morris to represent us in Hollywood, and we are taking it out as an animated series. So very excited to chat this morning.
My name is MK Badowski. Testing. Okay. My name is MK Badowski. I'm head of marketing and community for Non-Fungible Heroes. I found myself in this space coming from working on Comic-Cons and PAX video gaming conferences and just really celebrating the fan experience in person and now bringing it into a digital environment. And I'm super excited because I'm really proud of what our community does from a community-led perspective. And I'm always looking for more ways to empower them to keep building where we leave off.
My name is Eliot Greene. I am the co-founder of the Visible Project. We are a community-run film studio leveraging IP from Spike Lee's original film portfolio. And I'm just very excited to be here with all of you. Thanks.
So I'm going to ask you guys a few questions, and I can sort of see some of you in the audience, so if you want to ask questions too, say the word. But first, why NFT? Why could you not build the things you want to build without it being an NFT?
Well, first, I think that film is inherently the most collaborative art form, and thereby it follows a lot of the traits of the NFT market that we've seen emerging over the past year and a half, where we think that that's going to go. The ability for a community to sort of break down the walls of access that are allowed in the film industry. Specifically, we think about the theme parkization of that space. Why is there not a world in which the community can decide what they want to see? Why are they not greenlighting the projects of tomorrow? NFTs obviously create an ownership structure whereby you can bring yourself into a space, own an IP that can leverage, some sort of utility. In this case, our utility is the opportunity to see pitches from emerging filmmakers and essentially grant them the financing that they seek. So to answer your question, I think, is there a world you could do this without NFTs? Certainly. I think there have been instances in Hollywood where they've tried to do things like that. I think that in many ways, actually, the efficiency is increased dramatically through NFTs. And also the community-driven element of it is something that you can organize appropriately in this space.
I mean, for us, the NFTs allow for ownership by the community, and that in turn allows for greater participation in the creative process. And our whole goal is really the decentralization of that creative so that every one of our community members, because of that ownership, is incentivized to participate. And honestly, when I think about traditional Hollywood is a monologue, right? You go to a theater, it's a one-way interaction. You watch a show, you read a book, you read a comic. Those are all very, those are very one-way interactions with an audience. You don't get to influence the Marvel movies, right? And Marvel movies are fantastic, by the way. I love everything that Disney and Marvel are doing. I love film. But the paradigm, in my mind, is shifting a little bit because ownership not only brings individuals together, and clearly we have the financial interest, and we know that the space is largely driven by speculators and gamblers right now. My hope is, and my belief is, that evolves over time into those that are interested in participating in a number of different ways. Whether that's promoting on social media, whether that's as a creator themselves, as an artist, as a storyteller, whether it's just being a superfan and saying, I can have a little bit of an influence over the direction that this story takes. In my mind, that's what NFTs allow us. And NFTs also allow you to cut across owners, allow you to identify ownership across every level. So it's no longer, if you look at a Spider-Man property, there's an amazing Insomniac video game. Clearly, there are a number of amazing films. There's the comic book. There's backpacks and lunchboxes and everything. But there's no real way to tie your fandom together. And so one of the kind of core efforts that we'll be making in the Non-Fungible Heroes community is how to tie fandom and community participation across every single level that happens.
So realistically, the standard for Hollywood productions is sky high, and not every single community member is going to be equipped to do those things. They don't have that skill set or background or resources. They might have the passion or an idea. How can a project empower them to create and actually use IP? Because just granting it to them through an NFT drop is only the first step. So what can a project do to actually drive the creativity and productivity?
Yeah, I think it's about providing a very large number of outlets to express that creativity, right? Not everybody is a storyteller. Not everybody is an artist. Not everybody wants to participate in that way. So, in our universe for Heroes, we, whether it's Twitter engagement, we have an idle game where people can play a game and earn tokens that they can spend within our ecosystem. We have the ability, we have actually created a gallery online where you can name your character, you can write a backstory. We do quests inside of Discord, and we actually have a bunch of community-led quests that are coming up that are a little bit Dungeons and Dragons-like. So immersing yourself in the story, whether as a participant or as a leader, there are so many ways to interact as a fan, as a collector, as a creator. I think that just opening up those pathways in every way for a piece of IP is where all of Hollywood will eventually go, because it's a much more immersive experience, much more engaging experience. So the ability to tie all of those together through a Web3 native project it's really what drives us.
Any additional thoughts on that empowerment of community members and their self-development as creatives?
I think what's interesting is that we don't do exactly the same thing with the empowerment of IP, but what we do try to create is an ecosystem whereby people pursuing careers in this space are able to find like-minded individuals, merging projects they can work on. For example, there was a cinematographer a couple weeks ago that found the next project they were going to be working on, in this community. And I think that sort of speaks to the collaborative nature of this space meeting the film space, Web3 and film combining. But maybe we should allow our newest panel member to introduce herself.
Your tardy panel participant. I was obviously coming in a little bit on the late side, but one sort of live example that I really love about community participation is it's very novel tech, obviously, that we're all talking about. But the whole idea of community-driven narrative development. And so the idea that, what if the community and the core fans of Game of Thrones got together to decide the ending? It would have been so much better. Right? And the reality of that is a bit of a ways away, because there's a lot dependent on coordination and how do you gather those ideas. But People Pleaser, who's a wonderful NFT artist, her latest project, Shibuya, is kind of taking that idea of you can stake a token to decide the ending you want. So I don't know if you guys remember the Black Mirror episode, I think it was called Balderdash, where you could sort of choose the ending, choose your own adventure. Of course, I went back and rewatched it and chose all of them because I really wanted to know what I was missing. But in this case, it takes a similar concept, but you have a producer token that you buy to fund the project in the first place. So that's sort of the fundraising NFT model. And then if you have your producer token, you can get to the end of the chapter and there's a choice for you and you can stake your token. And then after the end of the chapter, when all the tokens are staked, that's kind of the vote. And then that's the ending that the team then creates and develops further for the next chapter. And so there's sort of the community engagement model that we know today, like Discord engagement, sort of gamified participation, rewarding engagement through claimables, whatever it might be. And then there's like using the tech to actually gather the creative ideas from the community to help that story development, which I think is really cool, and I hope we see more and more of it. But Shibuya has been a fantastic project so far.
Before we move on, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself and your project and your role?
Yes, of course. My apologies. My name's Camilla. We at Mojito work with big brands to help build their tech and build their marketplace, their community portals in the space. So we've been powering all of Sotheby's NFT sales and platform over the last year. We're working very closely with CAA to help build out what that might look like for their entire network of artists and actors and celebrities and musicians, of how do you use Web3 to like actually realize the potential of the creator economy for them as individuals, and working with some sports teams and other brands. So that's what we do at Mojito, and personally I've been in the crypto space since about 2017. I was at Consensus for a number of years, where we sort of helped launch MetaMask and Infura, a lot of the core tooling on top of the Ethereum ecosystem, and then was at Serotonin for a number of years working with companies across the crypto space to bring them in.
Awesome. So as I think about what is in common with each of these projects, and especially as you talk about brands entering the space, everyone's community starts at zero and has to build from the ground up. So if you're trying to foster a really creative, empowered community with an eye on Hollywood, where are you beginning? Where are you collaborating? Where are you building and attracting eyeballs from?
I'm happy to start. I almost disagree. I think for some brands, and depending on who you are, ability in the space, you bring your community with you. And if it's a brand new project launching like Web3 native, which has been like the soul of NFTs over the last 2 years as these bottoms-up grassroots project, as we've seen with the recent success of things like Goblin Town and Free Mint projects, we don't actually know the founders, it's not an existing brand. But then when you think about famous directors, and I know one of you's been working with Spike Lee on his project. So if you come with an existing fan base, the whole idea is, what does that community then want in this ecosystem? What can you bring them through this tech that's more rewarding, more engaging, all those things? And so I think some of it is the promise of like more direct access to the thing you love, to the brand you love, whether that's through Discord where you speak directly with the team and with other fans in one place that you might not have gotten unless you were really enthusiastic about finding the right Reddit threads. And you don't need Web3 for that. That's just better coordination and communication online in a different way. But then when you introduce either NFTs through what we've seen a lot, it'd be like collectible projects or PFP or art projects where someone can buy a piece of the brand. But then if you think about access to whatever it is you love, like that becomes for the film, for the director, for the producer, that becomes your on-chain CRM of all your core most loyal fans that you can then access in a whole new way and reward in a whole new way. And so the whole promise is like digital fandom in Web 2, where you might have 5 million followers on Twitter, or you're a global sports team, or you're a global celebrity, or you're a global actor. It's really hard to monetize and capture the value in that community. The way that it's done so far is through like selling that for advertisement. And the brand doesn't love that, and the fans don't love that because they're capturing that love through like ad sales. But with crypto and with Web3-based and token-based economies, you can sort of surely sell or mint or give your fans a blockchain-based asset that then you kind of all win together. And so instead of value extractive, if the brand continues to pour more value into it, it either can be a speculative asset that goes up in price, which is mostly what we've seen over the last 18 months, or it can actually be a way to access and reward and connect and, with IRL or digital experiences with that whole fan base.
I think access is probably my favorite word that connects all of these things.
Eliot, do you want to go or you want me to?
Oh, no, the only thing I would add to that is just I think that in addition to the access, when you're trying to port that audience over from an existing medium, it's all about trying to lower that barrier to entry so that they can realize the value on the other side of the rainbow, so to speak. And so that's something that we actively try to figure out with Spike's audience. Many of them have never bought an NFT before, don't know what an NFT is, but it's also NFTs driven by a purpose and not just there for the sake of being there and in this space because it's hypey and buzzy.
It's really interesting because I come from the opposite side, right? You guys are working with properties with tens of millions of fans already, working with Spike Lee as director. all the CAA properties clearly have kind of existing fan bases. I think the challenge from a legacy piece of intellectual property is really that on-ramp into Web3, and how do you educate individuals not just on how to buy an NFT and how to get a wallet. Those are pretty significant barriers to participation in the space, but also security, which has just become such a major concern. And even for native Web3 people who have been doing nothing but buying, selling ETH NFTs, you still see people getting rugged all the time. So that's a very interesting challenge. Our challenge is very different at Non-Fungible Heroes. We started a piece of intellectual property essentially from scratch. We have this amazing art team, Mad Boogie Studios down in Brazil, who create beautiful artwork. We have an incredible team behind the comics. We have a awesome community and collectors, but definitely much smaller, right? We've got a small kind of loyal fan base, and we see them building, and that's what we get to do because it is smaller and it's a little bit of an experimentation opportunity to say, here are the tools, community, let's see what you can build. And we have I will give the villains within our community a little bit of props because they're building some really crazy stuff, although I am a hero at heart. But watching how individuals express themselves has been really fun, and then encouraging them to do that has been kind of one of the most exciting things about watching NFH grow, and I think that's going to be one of the things that continues to drive a lot of IP in the space.
Yeah, expanding on what you said, heroes and villains, when people join our Discord, one of the first things they do is pledge allegiance to the heroes or villains. And so from an empowerment standpoint, that instantly makes them part of one of the two factions. They are empowered to create a little bit more within that narrative. The villains in particular, as he referenced, are a little further along in their building, where they've created org charts of where their characters in this fictitious Genesis city that we've created would work. And so I hold one villain that is a detonations expert who you would call in for, a bank heist or something like that. And what we've been really working on building is the way that they can build together. It's okay if you only hold one NFT and you feel like you can't tell a comprehensive story without a hero and a villain, but you can team up with others and find complementary powers. Like, you think about the best things about Marvel films are when two people are like really equally matched in their powers, and you don't know which way a fight is gonna go. And so I think for us, a lot of empowering the community is getting them the tools they need so that they can always feel like there's an epic story to tell that's worth telling.
It's just like the real world. Of course, the villains are more organized.
Absolutely. But we kind of talked about it because at one point we were like, oh no, our community's imbalanced, and are we going to achieve all of our goals if it's organically taking this shape? But in any dynamic story, the villains have to do something for the heroes to rise to the occasion. So we sort of needed some instigation in our community, and it really organically happened through the villains just constantly poking at the heroes.
I have a question for both of you guys, if you don't mind. Watching brands enter the space and watching legacy media and entertainment properties enter the space, 95% of them have really struggled, right? Struggled to find authenticity is really, they haven't struggled to sell out necessarily.
For
but
major existing brands coming in.
That's right. So as you focus your efforts on ramps for brands, I guess, what keeps you up at night, and then what steps are you taking to ensure that they can enter the space authentically and create a meaningful experience?
Yeah, and it's really fun. We sort of are consistently doing research on how many major brands have entered, and it's wild how many brands have explored or dipped a toe in and launched an NFT project. Like upwards of 300 of every major industry, food and beverage, from like Taco Bell and Lay's and Pringles to the major global fashion houses. Some projects have done very well. Automotive, you name it, they've probably done it. Lots of them have completely fallen under the radar. And I'm quite active as like a collector myself and in this space, and I'm like, wait, Jimmy Choo did an NFT drop? I had no idea. And some of them, I don't know, it's hard as a brand to think, like, where do you get your advice? Do you mint on BSC? Do you mint on Tezos? Do you mint on ETH? Do you mint on, how do you navigate that going into it? And it's really tough. And then, there's a sustainability concern because they're major brands, and that's part of the conversation. So there's sort of that step that you've seen, as you said, a lot of them have flopped. I think the ones that have done well are the ones that are the most consistent with their brand and what they do. So if you are a food and beverage company coming into this space, and what you've seen in NFTs in the last 18 months has been like digital art and collectibles, you think, okay, what crypto native artist am I going to partner with and do a PFP project, or like mint some sort of digital postcard that I'm going to sell to my fans of my beverage or something like that. And I understand that's their conclusion, and that's how they're brainstorming around it. But the more consistent you can stay to why people love your brand, the better that it goes. And so if you're a fashion company, you should be going into this space pushing the boundaries of digital fashion, meaning like filters, things like what Danny Loftus is doing, or the Fabricant, where you can like almost like a Snapchat filter buy an NFT that's an outfit. And so for all the photos that I post up here on the panel, I'm actually wearing this fabulous red ball gown, and that's an NFT. And with Instagram integration, you can see it. Like, amazing if a major fashion house comes into the space in that way. A little bit odder if they come into the space doing an art project or something, because that's not why they're beloved. And then for brands that might be, automotive, consumer beverage, it's really cracking that utility nut, which has been kind of utility in the question of, NFTs and utility, that's the next wave, but it's been kind of a meme. Like, a lot of the actual utility for some of these NFT projects has just been joining a gated Discord, stuff that you don't really need blockchain for. But when you think about whether it's redeemables of NFTs for physical goods, like Adidas is doing, where you can, burn your NFT and claim your Ali G-looking yellow jumpsuit in person, or redeemables for experiences, or redeemables for something that, or in-person ticketing for events, which sounds very simple but is incredibly revolutionary if that's NFT-based. Membership programs, digital membership programs that are NFT-based, and therefore if I'm not using it for a month, I can rent it out, or if I want to sell it to someone else, I can. So things like that, where brands really are getting a little bit more creative of using all pieces of the tech, and not just sort of selling a new product line, like using NFTs to host a JPEG and like doing like a new drop of, Prada keychains or something. Nothing to Prada in particular, their team is amazing and they're thinking about really cool creative stuff. But some of the Web2 brands still think in that model. If it's a new product launch, it's a new thing. But as soon as you see their minds shift to, I'm actually seeding a digital community and getting these NFTs, whether it's a membership-based program or utility project or an art project, into the market, that's actually phase like 0. And now you have a digital community that you're sort of beholden to, that you continue to pour value into.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle is kind of Web 2 thinking with Web 3 activation. Yeah. That's been one of the ones. Eliot, how about you? What do you got?
Yeah, I think it's just when you're trying to chase a trend as a brand, you're aiming at a moving target, and it's about, as you mentioned, consistency of your brand story. Particularly as if you're a legacy creator trying to get in the space and you're working with legacy IP, there's a reason why it resonated with them from the beginning. There's so much there from an emotional foundation to tap into that you don't need to go chasing. It's like every week we see sort of a new trend emerge, right? And one thing that we look at is which of these trends are here to stay for more than 6 months, which feels like a long time in this space.
6 days.
Right, exactly. Which ones are just, sort of a trend of the week. But regardless of the tools that you utilize, if your story is consistent with your, brand messaging, regardless of the medium, I think you're on the right track.
And it's also from the tech side, like a lot of what we've done when we launched with Sotheby's Liverpool Football Club's NFT experience. As I think you mentioned, it's really tough. I think we've all gone through it in the room or advised friends who want to buy their first NFT. If you're saying okay, you have to buy ETH on Coinbase, put it into a MetaMask, install the browser, and then deal with gas fees, slippage, getting front run, congestion on the network, they're like, seriously? That's so hard. And as you get more into Web3, you forget how difficult and awful the user experience is. And so if you're a brand coming into this space, you're also bringing your global fan base with you. And you need to have it be an experience that they too can come into. It's not just selling to the small couple 100,000 monthly active wallets that are in this space. Actual ETH-based wallets interacting with NFT contracts is tiny, probably even less so in the last couple weeks. So it can't just be a product and a service for that core group. it needs to, your responsibility as a brand coming into this space is to help onboard and educate. And so a lot of what we built out with Sotheby's and through Liverpool was sort of what we call this like Web 2.5 step, where you can still come in, pay with credit card. You don't have to have a pre-existing wallet. If you do, great, you can still connect your wallet. But if you don't, you get a semi-custodial multi-sig wallet set up for you. And then if you want to take advantage of the composability, sell it on a secondary marketplace like OpenSea, there's the journey of you can either take that wallet completely on-chain or transfer your NFT into it.
Sure. And it looks like we're out of time.
So
Sorry.
quick.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think
You guys are fantastic. Thank you very much. Everybody want to give a hand to these lovely panelists. We'll just have you come out in the back. Appreciate you guys. Thank you
much,
so
everybody.
much.